Hey everyone, I'm Mike Lowe, and this is Access Football 23. More specifically, it's their franchise mode, and I'm going to give you my top 10 reasons why I think their franchise mode just might be better than Madden 23. Let's take a look. But before we do that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel here. We are always doing franchise mode gaming, franchise mode streams, and things that are related really to just the sports games that we love and how to get the most realism and enjoyment out of those modes. You can find me directly on Twitter at MikeLowe47. I'm always bouncing around the Operation Sports Forum, also the Sim Sports Gaming Discord. So you can all check those out. It's super appreciated, and thank you for the likes, thank you for the subscriptions. Let's get into the video. So let's start here actually with the editing suite, or the team suite as it's called in Access Football. Here you can edit the 36 fictional teams, or you can edit and create your own fictional teams if you want, and you could even convert these, I guess, to real NFL teams or college teams or whatever you might want to do. You have a lot of different options here. Team city, name, abbreviation. You can work on the color palette for the team you're working on. You have different logos that you can work on. So there's like 5 pages of Access logos, and then there's 5 pages or 4 pages of just kind of generic mascots. There's lettering, there's location style lettering, state logos, and so on. So lots of different things here, and you can get really creative with what you do with this. Not only can you adjust the logo, but you can adjust uniforms. And these teams come with really, really nice uniforms to start with. Again, just out of the box here, we have a home uniform, military appreciation uniform. Have you ever seen this in a fictional game? Super, super cool. Alternate uniforms, almost like a color rush setup. And you can go in and edit all of these different levels here. I'm not going to do that because I believe once you start editing things, it saves, and it's nearly impossible, or at least very difficult to undo. But there's a lot of flexibility and customization. So if that's your thing, you're going to love it just on this one particular topic. The customization is super deep. Not only uniforms and logos, you can also adjust fields. You can change the way the dirt or the grass looks on the field. You can change the end zone styles and so on. Tons of different stuff you can do. You can also adjust the way a team plays, or essentially the entire league. So if you wanted to kind of create like a, 1900 style football where it's just handoffs and the score is 6-3, or there's like a safety on each team every week or whatever, you could essentially create this, right? The game out of the box is a little bit run heavy. So again, maybe that's something you want to go in and adjust if you're trying to make it a little bit more realistic for like modern NFL, but you have that ability. And not only that, but notice this isn't just one screen. This is the offense on first down, as you can see on the top left, and it's in close yardage situations. So we could set this to like medium, right? So here's what they want to do on first down. Here's what they want to do on second down with 8 to 11 yards to go. And so again, you have all of these different things: first, second, third, and fourth, long, medium, short, and close. So tons of options for every single team. You can do that. There's playbooks that you can load in that are pretty true to their form, whether it's a 4-3 defense, 3-4, and so on. Lots of different offenses you can pick from there, which are going to look pretty familiar if you've played like NCAA 14. A lot of those are looking the same there. So yeah, you can do that. And what else? You can also edit the rosters, which is really cool. So not only can you go in and just change a player's personal information, like their name, number, age, and so on, you can edit their attributes. Now you'll see here their attributes are letters, but underneath the hood, the attributes are actually numbers. I love this. And the reason is you're going to see 2 ratings between 2 players, and it might be really, really close. Like they might have a B rating in something, like let's just say awareness. John Howard and Blake both have B+ awareness, but you don't truly know who's better, right? You don't know unless you look under the hood, which I wouldn't recommend doing, but you could if you needed to, or if you want to edit. But I love that there's some fog of war just naturally in this game. And it doesn't go away after you perfectly scout them and suddenly you have 100% scouting. It's always like this, which is awesome. So the customization in this game is stellar. It's really, really, really impressive. And that's whether you use the team suite to edit existing, or if you go in and create a new team. So here you can make, I don't know, that looks like the Detroit Bill Murrays or something. You could do some really, really cool stuff with this logo and make this team into whatever you want. Of course, change the colors. It generates a roster for you. So of course, here we have a completely different roster, and it's just so fun. And for those, I know a lot of us love realistic rosters and we want realistic teams. If you haven't tried fictional before, it is really cool. It's like picking up a book. And it maybe takes a chapter or two to get into it, but once you get into it, you start to fall in love with players like Travis Becker, or you start seeing, maybe the ageless Caesar Stone making a comeback when he has to fill in for the injured Becker or something like this. There's just really cool storylines that develop. You don't have any preconceived notions like you do with the real life players or teams, and I just think it's a really, really, really cool fit for those who are maybe looking for something a little bit different than Madden football. Next up on the list is league configuration. Now let's go ahead and start a new franchise with the Orlando Rockets. And you'll see we get some league configuration options here, which are pretty unique. You get the American setup, which is basically the NFL, 32 teams, 2 conferences, 4 divisions. There's also a tier system, the European tier system with 36 teams, which is all of the original fictional teams that are in the game. 3 tiers with promotions and relegations between the tiers. What happens here is basically the last place team in tier 1 and tier 2 relegate, and the first place or champion teams in tiers 2 and 3 will promote. I do wish we had some more options to like kind of set that how we want. Like maybe I want 2 demotions and 2 promotions and that sort of thing. But the tier system is really cool. I think personally, I'm still going to be using the American setup, mostly because of the way that the tier system impacts the draft and even how the playoffs work. But other than that, I think it's really, really cool. But I think if we get some more options for tier system, I'm on board with it. I think it would be really cool. But let's start an American setup here. We're going to do randomized rosters on because I want it to be just different rosters than what we were looking at. And we don't need to worry about these two because I don't want unlimited funds, and I don't want to, well, we're not using a tier system, so it doesn't matter. So we will go in and start this here. And again, here you can replace all of the different teams if you wanted to go in and load, say, a fictional team, or if you want to move teams around and adjust the different conferences, you can do that. So total customization. We've already seen so much that Madden 23 doesn't offer. And it's not a knock on Madden. I'm not trying to attack Madden. These are just facts. There is so much customization from a studio that is just microscopic in comparison to the Madden development team. But here we have just so much more flexibility, so much more options, and it just provides you more entertainment over the long haul because you get to do some different things and maybe get away from Madden, especially if you're someone where the game's feeling stale, like it has to me the last few years. Next is the way in which you can actually play, coach, spectate, or simulate a game. This isn't a revolutionary concept, but it's very clean and it works just like you're thinking. So of course you can load into a game and play it, but coach and spectate are really, really cool in that you can load into a game and watch it in spectate mode or coach a game in actual coach mode. Of course, there's the simulate game option, which works just as expected. It's very, very quick, and you can really rip through seasons pretty quickly, even though there's not a, like, say, simulate 10 years at a time like Madden has, which is a really cool feature. You can still rip through weeks really, really quickly, thus seasons very, very quickly. I haven't found a way to kind of make your team like CPU controlled so that they're kind of managed properly over the course of a quick sim. But still, if you just want to kind of see how stats look and do some testing, it's a really easy way to do it. But let's jump into spectate mode. Let's see what this looks like and why it's such a cool feature. Now, before we load into the game, we do get a few different options. We get some game setup options. I recommend 15-minute quarters, certainly injuries and fatigue being on. Gameplay, for me, if I'm actually playing the games, I found Hall of Fame to be really realistic. It's not cheesy. It's not artificially difficult. It's very realistic. The lower difficulties I was finding too easy, even in kind of the first or second games I was playing here. You can even go in and customize the stadium that you'd be playing a game in. So say if you wanted to set up like a Super Bowl environment, you could do that. There's also, and again, it's nothing super fancy, but you get expert picks. These are the little immersion features that Madden has been missing for years. It's something that the community of Madden has been begging for years. Tell me, what's fancy about this screen? The answer is not a whole lot, but it's still immersion. It's cool. It's interesting. It gets you thinking. It gets you more connected into your franchise, and in this case, this particular game that you're about to play or spectate or coach. I love that it has a little verdict there at the bottom showing you, which it sounds pretty legitimate, that they simulated this very quickly 1,000 times, and our Orlando team has a 36% chance of winning. The quote-unquote experts have given their scores. I'm guessing that's just kind of like they pulled out 4 different games out of those 1,000 simulations, and those were the scores of them. But still, this is cool, and it's relatively simple thing to add into a game that we're just not seeing from Madden. And I just think that's really, really cool. But let's jump into the actual gameplay and see what spectator mode looks like now.
Stevens. With me, as usual, is analyst Mike Steele.
Hey,
Thanks,
Dave Stevens sounds familiar.
I'm excited for today's matchup.
That's right. That's the guy from NFL 2K.
You are absolutely
Most recently,
right,
NFL 2K5.
Well,
so the
right
same play-by-play announcer. Super, super cool. I love that in spectator mode I can change the view just by pushing the X button. That's all I got to do. And here I can watch my team. I don't know if Hall of Fame, by the way, works well in spectate games. I haven't tested anything like that. I don't even know if it matters, truthfully, but maybe to start with, you could start at one of the more middle difficulties since the CPU is just playing the CPU.
See if the wind starts to cooperate, but if it doesn't, you can expect an uptake in the run game.
You have multiple colored commentators, by the way. There's a sack off the edge. So I love that the spectate mode is in broadcast camera. I love that I don't have to like rig anything up or install a mod or anything like that. It just works. And it's fun. I love the little subtle animations. Now, does this game have the graphics of Madden? No, of course not. And if you're watching this video and this is shocking to you, maybe this is the first time you've seen Access Football, and it's going to stand out to you, clearly. No one is saying that it's going to look as good as Madden. But does it play as well? There's an argument there. And I think it's a fair argument. I am having more fun playing Access Football right now than I have Madden in the last few years. Let's watch a few plays.
Drops back. A flag on the play.
Hey, a flag. What's that?
We'll see if the penalty affects the
actual penalties?
The Gladiators will accept the penalty.
This guy has a
actual penalties. You're going to see actual injuries in the game. If you want to speed up this kind of transition in between plays because you want to just get through the game a little bit quicker, you can do that. By the way, there's another penalty. And I didn't even have to select that. The AI selecting all this. I'm literally just spectating here. So we're seeing, again, details on flags, injuries. I love the running animations. I love, like, when I get tackled, it really feels like we're fighting for yardage. Now this is interesting. We keep getting a delay of games here. So, but we'll see. This has happened in Detroit before. Teams have gotten back-to-back false start penalties. I have never seen this before, so hopefully it's not a bug or anything, but let's see what it does. 12-second runoff. That could be part of the problem too. I have my runoff pretty low, and so maybe in your franchise games, if you're spectating, you might want to turn that up. And again, the Hall of Fame might be impacting here, like pass rush and stuff like that. 2nd and 37. This is a pretty rough drive here, but still. Spectator mode's cool. This is straight out of the box. This is using the settings that I'm using in actual gameplay.
That gets us to 3rd down.
3rd and 50. Okay, I've never seen that in Madden before. You got to call a spade here. So, spectator mode, at least in the settings I loaded in, I would recommend probably making some adjustments because this is not pretty. Watch them convert this. Oh my gosh, they just converted it. Alright, that's insane.
We talked to other coaches.
I don't even know what to make of that. I'll let you all comment on that, but that's I'm glad that we were filming that. That is hilarious. So there we go. You get a little bit of gameplay. Again, it's a little... I'm not going to call it wonky. We've only seen one drive. That was crazy. That was such a Detroit Lions-esque drive for the defense. 3rd and 50, and they score a touchdown on it.
Now they need to
oh my gosh. So yeah, anyway, if you don't think that's possible, go watch some Detroit Lion replays the last 20 years. I wouldn't be completely shocked. So anyway, spectator mode, definitely on my list of cool features. Coach mode, as you'd expect, is going to be very, very similar, just that you get to control the actual calling of plays and kind of the management of the depth chart and things like that. And of course, straight up gameplay is just like you'd play in, say, Madden football. Let's watch a couple plays here by Indianapolis, who I love their uniforms, by the way. Look really sharp. See that tackling animation there? Looks really, really clean. It's just good. And I don't... to me, these graphics aren't terrible. Like, I understand they're not great. This is not like Call of Duty or, you know, even like FIFA, I think looks pretty good gameplay-wise in a broadcast camera. That right there, just that catch and roll, it just looks clean. And I would rather have a well-functioning franchise mode with this, which there you see injuries, by the way, right? So we actually are seeing in-game injuries to all positions. It's just creating a realistic experience of football. So spectate mode, coach mode, all of that, definitely on my list of things why I think Access Football franchise mode is really impressive. Now, there are a lot of menus here in franchise mode, but not in a bad way. It's not cumbersome, it's not overwhelming, everything's streamlined, and it's really easy to find. But specifically, I want to talk about another like of Access Football, and that's the way that they handle scouting and the draft. So you can really start with this team draft guide, and this is your player pool. This is all quarterbacks, for instance. These are all running backs, and so on. These are unscouted players. You can see they would have a little yellow mark next to them if they were scouted, even if they were just scouted a little bit. And so these are kind of all the players you have. You can flip over, there's a team guide. It'll kind of show you, like, here's some areas we think you can upgrade, even down to your kicker, DB, quarterback, and so on. Best available players. So here's what you could do to maybe up, if you wanted to improve on Donald Cologne there, you could with Hugo Marshall, who we just looked at, and so on. There's a team summary. This is where, of course, your draft picks will show up. And then the actual draft summary. It's so difficult in Madden to find the actual draft history. If you're in an online league and you're drafting and maybe you missed something because you're looking at your phone or your notes and you look over and you're, wait a second, did that guy get drafted? I don't know. This is right here, and it's really easy for you to find. From the player pool, you can then go in and actually start working on your scouting. And the scouting in Access Football is a definitive like for me because it's better than Madden's. It's better than Madden's old way, and it's better than Madden's new way, in my opinion. You have 4 scouts, west, central, southeast, northeast. They start off with 1 point. You can see kind of that top left area where it says points. Each week, they will accumulate 1 point. You can never, though, have more than 3. So what you could do, for instance, is like the first 2 weeks of the season, just like in Madden, right? You could just patiently wait and maybe just accumulate some points. Let's see what happens here. Let's try to see what our record is. Maybe if we're realizing we have some team needs we didn't really anticipate. And then you can go in and scout. One kind of thing to note here is that it will only show you the players, not just from the West, but specifically players that you are focused on in your scouting focus here. So here we're seeing defensive line, wide receiver, and there's always going to be a third one, quarterback, it looks like. We're only seeing those positions because that's what's selected here. And so, and unfortunately, you can't go in and just do like, well, I'll just turn these off. We'll put these to empty, and this will show us, you know, all players. It won't. It actually won't show you anything. Or even if I just did punter, it's literally going to only show me the punters or whatever. So you'll need to go through and look at each area, not only of your team needs, but really also what's available from that particular region. Now, there's a way that you can do that, and that's here by unlocking this national scouting report. You can spend $2 million of your funds, and this will give you a report. Now, this screen isn't like going to knock your socks off or anything, right? It's pretty straightforward information. But again, it's something, right? There's some depth here. There's some intrigue. You can build around this. There's a reason why I always come back to storytelling in books, even with games. There's a reason people like to sit down with a book. It's just text on a page, but it captures your imagination, and games can still do this even in today's world. And so here we're able to see, you can flip through and say, for instance, it looks like tight ends are really strong in the central area. So that's going to be handy in the southeast defensive line. And you can look to focus on some areas. Looks like there's a really good punter in the west that we saw there. And so then you could go in and either adjust these areas based on, say, your team needs, or you could base them on just what's available in that particular region, right? And so as I do that, you can see that they flip through. In each particular section, you're able to change the scouting focus for that different region. So again, there's depth here when it comes to the draft, when it comes to scouting college players, but it's not bulky, it's not cumbersome, and it just makes a lot of sense. So again, a huge win for me, the way that the draft and scouting is handled here in Access Football. Now, what about some of these other menus? Well, there's quite a few. You have your facilities area that you can go in and upgrade. And again, it's nothing fancy, but it's functional. So if I wanted to upgrade the general seating, you'd imagine that's going to help bring in revenue. So you kind of spend a little money to make a little money, right? It's some things there. Some teams are going to come in and the field conditions really bad. That's going to affect injuries. And it actually works, right? It's really, really cool. Again, weight rooms, pool rooms, practice fields, film room, they all have their pros and cons of different things you're going to do. Rehab, even transportation, right? You could have buses for teams that are really, really close by. You have your hotel, the quality of hotel that can affect team morale, ensuring that the planes that you're using and mode of transportation is there. Maybe they're not flying, on a coach flight with you or me as we're on our way to our vacation or something, right? So really, really cool that you're able to upgrade these. It kind of takes me back to like MVP Baseball 05. I mean, they had some elements like this where you could kind of focus funds on buses and planes and transportation, things like that. So again, really, really cool, very, very straightforward, but functional, and it works. There's also a practice strategy section. So you can adjust the number of points available by changing from, say, normal to heavy to extreme, or you can go below normal and use light or none. And then what you do from here is, let's just say we wanted to use normal, is you can distribute these 16 points. So you could go through and say, okay, these are the areas that we want to take a look at here. And you could even adjust this each week based on your opponent, right? So again, there's the 16 points went pretty quick there, but you can go through and adjust all of these different practice settings based on your opponent for each different week. And just, again, simple but effective. Another really cool option here that's in the game. Now, I really love what they've done with coaching staffs. First off, you actually have a coaching staff. You have a full-fledged, fleshed out coaching staff that even generates history. So we have Jace Evans here, the head coach of Orlando. He's 54. He's won nearly 68, 69, 70% of his games there. He's coached a long time. It generates a playoff record for him, contracts, and so on. So he's coached 25 years. He was a pretty young coach when he started. Of course, they have attributes. They even have badges on some of these coaches. So as I flip over to Kyle Arnold, who's the offensive coordinator, we go to the defensive coordinator. You're seeing very similar things here. And again, there's depth here. It's already more than Madden gives us with our coaching staffs. There's also position coaches, and these all impact different elements, such as the evaluation or the development of a particular position. Of course, your coordinators are going to be focused on offense and defense. Your head coach probably more like motivation and discipline and things like that. This is stuff you'd see in, say, front office football, if you've ever played that tech sim. Very, very similar setup with the coach attributes. But you have a coach for your quarterbacks, running backs coach. That's where we see our first badge here, where he's a backs expert. It gives a +1 boost to all running attributes. So very, very cool. Receiving coach. offensive line coach, defensive line coach, linebackers, DB. You also have the scouts that we saw, and even your scouts can have badges, as we just saw there in the West region, where he gets a 10 plus boost to his evaluation score. So without a doubt, coaching staffs, one of my huge likes, one of my huge pros of Access Football. So not only are you able to edit teams outside of your franchise, but you can also go in and edit them after the franchise has been created. So if you wanted to have kind of a rebranding of a team, or even a relocation of a team, you could go in and do that. Now, I don't know if there's a way to like adjust where they're at, say in like the conference or something like that. But if you're using a tiered system, and maybe this is one of the big pros of the tiered system, is it doesn't really matter because the tiers can change any given year. So you could literally go in and have a team relocate or completely rebrand themselves years down the road in your franchise mode. So again, really, really cool option there. So let's talk about how all of this looks at the end of a season. And to me, it's another pro for Access Football. We have simulated this entire season. Orlando has just snuck into the playoffs, it looks like, at 9-7. But let's take a look around. First off, you can see that we had one hell of a season by Mark Tran, who not only won Rookie of the Year, but also was the league MVP with 39 touchdowns, 4,072 passing yards, 67% passing. Now, it's a little far-fetched maybe, but I don't know. That's the only time I've seen it happen, and I've done quite a few of these simulations here where a rookie has won the MVP. But if we look at the league leaders, so these are the passing leaders, you can see the stats are good. And I mentioned that you're able to go in and edit even how a team plays. So if you're thinking like, well, I don't know, there should be more passing yards. I want to see a couple 5,000-yard passers. Okay, well, go in and adjust those 32 teams or 36 teams in a tiered system, have them pass the ball more. It's rather easy, and it won't really take that long. So, but nothing here looks terrible. You could say the yards per completion are even a little bit high. I mean, really, I think this is a simple thing of they're not passing the ball probably enough on default, at least. And again, that's a pretty easy thing to change. It might also just be the fictional roster that was developed. We didn't really inspect this roster. We just kind of went with it. But you can see these numbers, and again, these are 16 game schedules, but these look pretty good to me. There's nothing here that I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is totally messed up, right? Even Madden with their interception problems, we can scroll all the way down. By the way, look at backup quarterbacks are playing, right? Madden quarterbacks don't get hurt unless you have like enough quarterbacks on your roster, or if you edit their rating, which is something I was helping folks with on Operation Sports. You have to like edit the injury rating because it doesn't work out of the box. There are no QB injuries. It's complete horse, you know what. And so here instead, we have backup quarterbacks playing, and we have the worst quarterback in the league through 16 picks, not 50 or 45 like you're doing in your online league. And so, and that translates into gameplay. I have not been throwing, I think I've maybe thrown one interception in 3 games so far. And so it's very manageable for you. So these stats look good. Rushing stats, you think maybe these are going to be through the roof because there's less passing, but not really. These look good. You could say maybe there's a few too many running backs that are over 1,500 yards. But again, there's nothing here that looks crazy. I'm guessing yards per carry is like any player. Like that Sparks guy probably had, 1 or maybe 2 rushes for, and one of them was just massive or something like that. Because I don't think there's players who are averaging that. This isn't Tecmo Bowl. So I do wish maybe they'd use like qualifiers because, you probably see more guys around this range. So again, I'm not terribly concerned with that. Quite a few players who never fumbled, but again, only 31 players. And I don't know if that means like players who've never touched the ball. It's not completely clear, but still, I don't see anything here that's like immersion breaking, anything that's destroying the game. Yards per catch, you got some guys that are pretty high, but the yards per attempt were pretty high. Again, that's kind of the way the NFL is trending. Teams are throwing deeper. I have no problem with that. And if you do, you can adjust it, as we've said. You can edit those teams, right? So receptions, you got a few players that were over 100 receptions. Tackles, you got a handful of guys over 100. Sacks, the leader only had 10. That's the lowest I've seen. I was usually seeing around 16 or so in my quick sim. So again, could be part of the roster, could be some of the team settings and so on. And each year, that's going to probably fluctuate a little bit too. Interceptions look good. Again, you don't have guys with 13 or 25 like you do in Madden out of the box. Deflected passes, by the way, registered not only in simulated games, but they're registered in played games. So even like stats like thrown to and catches allowed, those register in played games. That has never happened in Madden as far as I'm aware. They have that stat in there. It tracks for simulated games, but not in played games. Yet here we have Access Football doing it the right way. Kicking leaders, I don't think anyone probably cares too much. The longest field goal attempted, that's the number of attempts. 55. Let's see, the longest. Does it tell us the longest field goal? Or maybe that is what that is supposed to be. I don't know for sure. But anyway, kicking leaders there, return leaders, and so on. This Holt player. Hey, for us, that's our team. 3 return touchdowns. It looks like maybe his brother or something also had 2 for their team. Very cool. So again, a fun fictional storyline right there. So again, stats look really good. Team leaders, you can of course go in and look at your team stats. Pretty simple. You're able to load up even career stats, which of course we don't see here after just one season. But we only had one quarterback play for us, but you can see backup quarterbacks are getting in and they're playing just like you'd expect in the real NFL. Not every single quarterback stays healthy the entire season. So again, pretty cool there to see that. You got team rankings. So if you want to sort, and by the way, all of these work. None of them are being duplicated like we see in Madden still, where you're having like fumble recoveries, which are always twice as much as actual fumbles in the league because they still haven't fixed that stat glitch for years. And so just things work, right? Team rankings work. Injuries work. As we flip through, you have teams here at the end of the season. And maybe you could argue there's still not enough. I think I actually have injuries maxed at this point, and I don't even know if that slider affects simulated games. It certainly affects played games. My goodness, I had a lot of injuries after just one played game with the injury slider maxed. But here you have Cincinnati with a ton of injuries, and it's a video game, guys. At the end of the day, if we actually had the realistic number of injuries in a game, we'd be frustrated. There are so many injuries, right? So there's a practice squad, which isn't active because we haven't done any sort of maintenance with this team at all, but you could obviously send up to 15 players to your practice squad. Morale changing throughout the year. We made the playoffs, so that's going to help. Again, just things work. Things are where they are supposed to be. I will talk later a little bit about free agency. I think this is an area that this game needs a little bit of attention with, but we'll talk more about that later. But overall, the end of season in Access Football is a plus for me. It is an absolute plus. There's nothing here that makes me go, oh, well, that's enough of this game. I'm done. My immersion's ruined. It's working, and it's cool, and it's fun, and it's different. So big thumbs up for Access Football here on our Quick Sim. So let's talk about the offseason. Some of you are going to really like the offseason, and I can see some of you maybe being a little bit underwhelmed with it. I'm more on the side of liking it because it's really simple and it's streamlined. And games like Super Mega Baseball have really turned me on to keeping things simple, keeping things clean and straightforward, and just getting me into playing more games. And that's what you're going to see with Access Football. So the offseason actually starts with player progression. And if I flip through here, it's going to look very similar to, say, like NCAA football or something like that from years past, where you're just getting some players going up and down. Of course, here in the pros, you're going to get more downs than you would in, say, a college game because of the player ages, right? So it kind of works as you'd expect to see. You're able to look through and see your particular team. I don't think you can see other teams, but I'm okay with that. I think that kind of keeps some of that fog of war interesting, and you're able to go through and just see how your team is adjusting there. You have your league champions. You're able to see the actual playoff grid. You're also in history able to go in and see the actual standings, right? You're able to go in and look at different game scores from every single week. You're able to go in and look at your team's schedule for that particular season. What does Madden give you with this? They give you a screen that looks like this and has like the MVP underneath it. Like, give me a break. It's ridiculous. And this is not hyperbole for likes or anything like that. It's just true. If you've played this game enough, if you've played Madden enough, you know what I'm talking about. This game creates an atmosphere that's fun to be in and it's fun to be around. And it's just simple. It's not complicated. It's not a new game engine. It's not a new suite of animations or anything like this. Those are nice, but they wear off, right? Give us substance. Shine is nice, but not without substance. And we're seeing that. Again, pretty straightforward. I think the draft is pretty cool in Access Football here. So let's continue talking about the offseason, which again is a plus for me. But let's look at the draft because I think you'll really like what you see there. All right, so we're going to jump in and start the draft. Oklahoma City has the first pick. Now, we didn't do any scouting, right? So this is going to be a bit of a cluster. But we're able to go through and we can see the player pool. So we're going to be drafting pretty blindly here. And I truthfully don't even know what this team needs. But here, you can at least get some of this information on our team guide. So passing, we're pretty bad. We have a pretty bad offense, period. We made the playoffs, it looks like, because of our defense. Our points allowed wasn't even good. I don't understand how this team made the playoffs. They just had a really good defense. Yet we still, it's like we had a good defense that gave up a lot of points. We had a bad offense that scored a lot of points. I don't even know what to make of that. That is super bizarre. We, of course, have our picks, which you can trade, by the way, so no worries there. But yeah, I mean, we're into the draft here, and it's pretty straightforward. What I like is as I scroll through these menus, the timer was at 9 seconds. I go back, and it's reset. And that's on speed medium, right? So if I wanted that to go slower, I could do that. We could put it on really slow. I could click over. We just missed their pick. Sorry about that. But point being is if I put it on, say, like very slow, I think that puts it at 30. And when I click off these menus, it resets. When you're on the clock, it's not there. Oh, and by the way, we missed our draft pick, but I forgot there's a draft summary. So we can see Sheldon Warren, defensive back, went number 1 overall to Oklahoma City. So there you go. That would have taken me forever in Madden to figure out where to even find that. The clock's running and who knows what else, right? Our 30 seconds just sits there. You can come up with your own house rules on how you want to maybe manage the clock and that sort of thing. So let's see just a few picks here. We'll put it on fast. And we'll see what Buffalo is going to do here. So again, simple sound effects, right? It sounds like you're watching a draft ticker or something like that. By the way, that pick was wide receiver Terrence Allison. Ooh, he could be a beast. A+ overall. Again, unscouted here. And we'll look at one more pick and then we'll jump into our pick. So Louisville picks offensive lineman. And I actually like this game. Like, they don't have centers or guards. It's just offensive line. It's defensive line. It's linebacker. It's DB. You can kind of put the players where you want to put them, which I think is kind of neat. It's certainly better than like Madden's like left defensive end, left outside linebacker, which is like NFL teams haven't used those terms in close to 10 years probably, right? I mean, we're talking about, jack linebackers and edge rushers and interior line versus, it's just the terminology is so outdated in Madden. It's never been updated. Who knows if it ever will. But again, pretty cool here that we're seeing this. Let's skip to our pick. It's now bumped us up. We can easily click into the draft summary. We can see what's gone on here. Let's just say, for instance, like, gosh, we got to get a quarterback, right? Let's see. Has any quarterback been picked? Ooh, they haven't. So we would get the first quarterback off the board. Is that right? Wow. So we can go to player pool. And there is one pretty good one here. Rodney Bridges, not bad. Let's see, though, if there's anyone that can beat a B+. And we'll just grab him. Ooh, you got to, oh, he's a punter. We're not going to grab an A+ punter. So let's go with Rodney Bridges. I don't really, truthfully, Kelvin Fries looks to be probably a better arm here. That's really nice. I don't know. Rodney Bridges really isn't all that impressive, but he's not scouted, right? So I guess let's roll the dice. Let's grab Rodney Bridges, and let's see. He was, what, a B+? So let's see what he comes. Oh, I think we can go here. Yeah. So, he was a C. So came down a little bit there. Maybe it was a reach, but that's okay. Let's skip to our next pick, and then let's see what other quarterbacks went here and see who outdid us with the quarterback selection. So the next quarterback taken, Kelvin Fries, got a pretty sweet name. He's got an A rating. And again, I don't know if these like change. I mean, they must, right? Because our guy changed to a C. So these must be more like the actual ratings after you draft them. I would probably come up with the house rule of like not checking this screen. Just because it's kind of silly if you realize you draft a bust the second you make the pick, but to each their own. But Kelvin Fries looks to be a pretty good pick there. So I'll probably, want to obviously take scouting a little bit more serious. Elliot Mullins, C+. Is he the only other quarterback picked? Yeah, so far. So again, you can kind of see there how the draft operates. It's pretty straightforward. It's clean. It's fast. It's easy. It's really easy to find the information you want. If we had actually scouted these players, we'd have more accurate information on them and so on. And, again, just it makes a lot of sense. So let's continue with the offseason because, again, this to me is still one of the big pluses of the game. I probably had the world's worst draft. I was drafting punters in like the second and third round. We were just ripping through it. But player contracts is where you would be going next here. And of course, you'd be signing all of your rookies or players that are just out of contract. So here are all of the quarterbacks on our roster because I just way overdrafted at quarterback because I wanted to get through the draft. But we'd have to make some choices on, pretty much everybody except for Tyree Vasquez here. He's the only quarterback under roster or under contract, I should say. So again, you'd have to go through and decide if you want to either cut guys or anything like that. And it's pretty straightforward. Like if we wanted to cut Sam King, it's going to tell you here, it's actually going to cost us money because it automatically saves you 50%, which means, of course, you're still spending 50%, but then there's a 30% payout for each year remaining. And because this guy is 3 years, it's pretty expensive to cut him. So even though it's not completely accurate to like how NFL contracts work, it's pretty good. It's very realistic, and it certainly can kind of keep you in that kind of field of immersion or realm of immersion when we're talking about how contracts are handled. So you can go in and again, you can negotiate with each of these players as you want. You can change the years and the salary information. You can see their career stats on the page if they had some, and so on. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to hit sign all, which I think is literally sign all for better or worse. And it's going to just sign all 700 of those contracts, and that's fine. So we now back out of that. Player contracts are done. And that's really it. You're going to notice there's not like a free agent area. Free agency is in the game, and I do want to talk about that. But that's probably my biggest critique of the game is how free agency is handled. So I'm not going to add it to my like list, but I do want to talk about it a little bit because I do think it is very important. So just like that, we're at the start of the next season, and you can see the game's done a pretty good job of spotting my roster here. We got our 53 spots set up. And it's moved players to the practice squad. Now, again, mine's going to be a mess. I have like 75 quarterbacks and probably 3 punters. Who cares, right? But it's there. The area I want to talk about is free agency. And you may have noticed earlier in the video that there were some like A-plus receivers just sitting there all year. And that's kind of what happens here unless you get involved. And so the way I'm going to handle it is free agency will kind of work on week 1 for better or worse. It's really the only time you can do it unless you do it maybe at like week 16 or something like that. I think maybe in the playoffs you could also do it, but again, a lot could still change with the contracts as the season turns over. But what I'm going to do is just look for players that are probably rated like B- or higher, if there even is them. I don't think there even are minuses, so I guess B or higher. So like I would go into Benjamin May, and as I click on him, it'll show me that there are teams interested. So I say, okay, that's fair enough. I don't want to have this guy sit as a free agent all year long. Either Boston or Minnesota wants him, great. Now, most of the time, if you just hit offer contract, you will sign the player. I feel like it's 80 to 90% certain that you will get it. So let's just say I don't want Benjamin May. I don't want to sign him. What I'm going to do is just kind of go in and lowball him an offer. And when I hit offer contract, he signs with Boston. So do the same thing with Trey Salazar. So again, does this need to be cleaned up? Yes. Is it a deal breaker? No, because I can, and so again, he says, I'm going to sign with another team. That's fine. Go ahead and sign. That's what we're trying to do. And I'm going to leave these C+ guys alone. As you go through the season, you could, look at the injury or the injury list each week and say, okay, this team needs to sign somebody. You could come up with whatever house rules you'd want for that. But of course, a guy like Devin Cooper, 6'5", A speed, A+ catch. This guy's a freak. Let's say we want to sign this guy. So I'm just going to say, yeah. And again, maybe house rules, like I'm not allowed to adjust the price. Let's just see. So we still signed with Cincinnati. So we didn't get him. So it works, but like it doesn't work on its own, and it's kind of strange. So as much as I'm okay with how free agency is added into the game, I'm not okay with the way it functions. Same thing here. Let's just say we want to offer this guy. Hey, we got him. But maybe we don't want this guy. Let's just lower this down. Oh, he's still signed. So again, if you really want to be careful, just for the brevity of the video here, I'm just trying to get these down, not super low, but you could go, of course, very, very low. They're all signing with us. But you get the idea. We'd go through and I would sign all of these players because look, there's a lot of really, really good free agents sitting out there. And that's just not the most realistic setup that you're going to want for your particular franchise. But it's all here. What I want to do too, just to kind of follow up one of the pros that we talked about earlier, is just what do the season stats look like here? Let's simulate a second season. Orlando is going to probably be a complete mess because we have those 55 punters and things like that on our roster. But who cares? Let's see how it looks. Or even better yet, I'll go create a new one, just like we did, and we'll just cut right to the end and see what the season stats look like. On our way to looking at this second season, here's what the tier system looks like. So I started a new franchise. You can go in and adjust the different tiers you have, or you can just kind of leave them as default, or you can even randomize those. But we're going to start this franchise here using the tier system. Simming this second season, I love that you can unlock new badges throughout the season. Again, just extra immersion. This is just a really nice little addition to franchise mode that you don't see in Madden, and I think this is really, really cool. So here we have Harrison Welsh, the head coach here of Arizona Heat, and he has now been able to increase the overall morale of the team because he's a locker room hero. So very, very cool addition. All right, so here we are at the end of this tier season here, and our team was in tier 3, but they crushed it. They finished 13-3, just fast simming. League MVP Dale Richardson there. Rookie of the Year from Detroit, Terry Collier, over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. The MVP, 4,400 yards, almost 44 touchdowns. So let's see, though, if we got some better passing stats this time around. It sure looks like it. We had a couple guys who were, one guy over 4,500 at 47. Quite a few players well over 4,000 yards. I mean, that looks a lot better. QB ratings just 2 over 100. So again, maybe those could be a little higher, but as teams are throwing deeper, that inevitably could come down. A little bit riskier passes. Passing touchdowns look really, really solid. Completion percentages look really good, especially with modern NFL. This sim looks way better. I'm glad we did this. This looks a lot cleaner. Rushing yards look good. Rushing touchdowns. I know the last time we had like kind of a lull in like sacks, so I'm curious to see that. But again, receptions look good. A lot of players over 100, but I don't think that's terrible. Yards per game are still a little low, but some of that might just be ball distribution. Just in simulated games, just more players are catching balls. Or yeah, I mean, they're just shorter, but again, the yards per catch are still pretty high. But my bet is that, again, these may not be filtered out by, say, like minimum number of catches or something like that. Sacks look a lot better here. Really, really good. Interceptions a little high, but still realistic. This looks great. Really, really, really good. I do wish they showed you like the longest field goal. That'd be kind of cool. Because I think these are literally just attempts. So anyway, returns, again, we don't have guys returning 7 kicks every year. Looks good. Looks really, really, really good. So again, another huge pro to me is it's just the entire franchise mode to me is a big pro, but specifically the way statistical integrity upholds throughout your franchise, season to season, even in different modes, whether it's tiers, different rosters, it's there. And so what if there's a little bit of variability in that? It keeps it fresh, it keeps it unique, and it's not as predictable. So again, another big pro. Just the way the statistics handle itself here in Access Football. Well, we're going to close out with some gameplay here. We might as well load up this playoff team. This Arizona team looked pretty darn good. The experts have us picking. It's a 76% chance win to get through this first round. It looks like it's going to rain, so I'm really curious to see that. It does not rain a lot in Arizona, but still, I've sat on runways at airports waiting because of monsoons, so it can certainly happen. Let's jump in. We are in coach mode this time, so let's see how the coach mode looks.
Hello and and welcome to Glendale, Arizona. I'm Dave Stevens. By my side is football analyst Mike Steele.
It's the playoffs, Dave. These teams worked really hard to be here, and I suspect neither one is ready to go home yet.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head with that, Mike.
So coach knows, right? I can work on my own substitutions if I want. I can decide the kickoff I want.
Let's get this game started.
And I'm trying to see if we'll be able to change the camera or not. I know in spectate mode you can.
The kick is caught at the 5-yard line. Let's go down to our own Emma Adams.
So let's just
an update for us.
Pick a random play here. They're going 3 wide.
A lot of sloppy plays today.
Oh yeah, cool.
Definitely tell that it's affecting
so
the play
we can change the view.
on-field execution. The teams are
Let's
already
watch
making
behind.
adjustments to minimize
You can even
the
make your own
effects of the rain,
audibles and
but
things
I'm
like
not
that.
sure how
So
much success
total
we'll see
control.
out
You
of it.
just hands off as far as the player movement.
Update, Emma.
So again, very, very cool. But guys, yeah, I am Mike Logan. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's keep these videos coming. They're really, really fun. I'm glad that we're able to promote a game here that's on the rise. I think a game that's doing a lot of right things. And again, full disclosure, they are not paying me a dime for this video. They are not. There's no promotional connection here at all. This was me just really wanting to show respect for a game that I see a lot of really cool stuff in. And I'm really excited for them. I'm excited because we're finally getting some options outside of Madden. Is it a complete package better game than Madden? That's up to you to decide. I don't know. It's what I'm gonna play. I will enjoy this game more than Madden, but that's up to you. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Let me hear if you have other questions or want to see other videos about Access Football or any other sports game. We'll keep these going because this is a lot of fun. And again, really, really excited. I'm excited for you to try it too. So let me know how that goes. But otherwise, yeah, again, thanks everyone. Like the video if you found this helpful, and we will talk next time. Bye everyone.